Hello everyone. Today I want to show you how we can create a simple mixed media tag with layered composition on the top. I chosen the tag because I like this shape. It's a small piece of the art. You can learn new techniques and you can create something new. My base is from the MDF, but you can cut your tag from the cardboard. You can take the chipboard tag, or you can cut the tag from the papers. You can use a small canvas or even the cover of your notebook or calendar. I chosen the heavy body gel because it's waterproof when it's dry. You need to remember about this when you work with media and water, because you can destroy your project when you use water or inks or something like that. I put the heavy body gel on the whole surface of the tag, and it's quite thick layer for now because I don't want to make dry too quick. And when it's ready, I put the paper on that. You need to be sure the whole surface is perfectly covered with heavy body gel, because we don't want to bubbles from papers when we start work with our tag. When I am sure everything is perfect cover with heavy body gel, I take the tag and put on the paper. I put straight to the edges of the paper, and I push to the paper the tag. I won't be sure everything stick together. How you see now, I always have two edges to cut the paper from this project. Now I push paper a little bit, and I want to remove heavy body gel from the place where it's too much of that. It's going out on the edges. And now it's time to cut the paper. I cut with the scissors around the tag. On the beginning I leave a little bit paper more than tag. It's more comfortable to remove that when it's small pieces around it. How you see, this I'll leave it for later, and here I can make more precision cut with the knife, but sometimes when it's not completely dry and paper it's a little bit moisture from the heavy body gel, not always knife want to work with the paper. That's why I use again the scissors. If I destroy edges, I don't worry about it because it's mixed media project. I always can hide that, and sometimes edges look more interesting than normal straight cuts. With MDF, it's this problem. It's a little bit thick, then your scissor never cut very close to the edges. Then I try make it that better, and leftovers of the paper I take the one blade of the scissors and move on the edges like the distress paper, and I remove the papers what it's too long for the base. I mark the place where I want to make the hole, and my way is to use the chopstick or wooden handle from your brush to make the nice round hole in the tag. It's looking nice and perfect for me. When this part is done, it's time to select the paper, because I want to work with the inks and water. Then I want to be sure my paper is safe from this. And I put one layer of the heavy body gel on the top of the tag. That makes my base more waterproof, and paper will be bind too much when react with the water. Be sure you make this part very perfect, because small spot in the layer of heavy body gel makes the way for water or inks to the paper, and you receive bad looking stain on the project. Sometimes you can hide it, but not always. And if you want to be sure it's good cover, when it's dry you can add another layer. It's not problem with that, but be sure it's perfect cover. I cover like that the edge of the paper and the tag too, because like you know, sometimes water and inks goes on the sides, and this is a good way for absorb the ink or water on paper too. Now I need to prepare a piece of the papers for the background. I use the guillotine, and the papers what I use it to stick it on the tag. The whole piece of the graphics I save for another project, and something what it's only partial, I cut it from the stripes. Stripes, it's my favorite thing to create the background. So you can use it all leftovers of the paper for that. If you need something in color, then you can chosen paper what you like it. And if your project should be white, then you can use every kind of the leftovers. For me now, I cut it the graphics elements, because it's cool and makes your project more interesting. And how you see now, I cut it that for the different sizes, because I want to create nice collage from this. My choice, it was the nice vintage yellow, brownish, greenish background. Then I chosen papers in this same palette of the colors, how you see, and I try to make now the composition on the tag. I don't try to combine too much. It's only when it's too big I try to cut for the smaller part with the scissors. And now I glue it everything with the heavy body gel again. I add a little bit thick layer because it's better. I want to be sure I don't have empty space under the paper, because with the empty space I have ugly bubbles in the composition. Sometimes it's not bad because it's during the dry process it's missing, but sometimes when the bubbles it's too big, it's look not nice. First part I glue it on the left side in the middle, and it's a big part. Later I try to add different elements, and I try to make the background for interesting looking for me. Every time when I decided the piece of the paper is too big, then I cut it that with the scissor. Don't afraid of that. Every time when it's you think it's something bad, you can add another piece of the paper and make your collage background more interesting. I don't think about how going the letters, how looking that, because it's only the background, and I want to create only nice, interesting texture. When I glue it, I try to cover on the top with the heavy body gel too, and I try to add heavy body gel in the every space of the papers, on the edges and in the corners between the papers, because with every layers of paper we create like something higher, and I don't want to have this empty space for the water and inks. For me this part is nice and relaxing. I don't try to hurry with that because I want to be sure my background will be looking nice. Then I try here, I try there, and I decided where I want to glue it. And when I am sure it's okay here, I put the heavy body gel and stick it everything together. When you put layers of the heavy body gel on the top of the piece of papers, you can push a little bit stronger with your brush and squeeze the axis on the heavy body gel from bottom of the paper. It makes your surface more straight. I like the collage from the stripes of the paper with many pieces of the paper. That's why it's take a little bit longer, but for me it's more interesting. And always when I create the background, I try to make one central collage, and when I want to balance that, then I added this small part of the collage in the other parts of the projects. I try to think where I want to create the main composition on that. In this moment I create there the collage. With time I try to add another pieces and make this collage bigger and bigger. But not always. It's your decision. It's decided. You decided when it's looking perfect for you. In this composition, I stick paper vertical and horizontal side because I want to make it that more interesting. But sometimes, when you want it, or your composition is good for that, you can chosen only one direction, or only horizontal, or only vertical. I like the verticals when I create a project with composition looking like hanging, and the stripes go down from this composition. It's looking very nice. Then you can always try and experiment with your backgrounds. And now I decided the bottom part it's too empty, then I add a little bit papers in the down right corners to make the composition more balanced for eye when you will be look on that. Sometimes it's going so well, then the stripes of the paper is finished, then I need to cut another one. Especially when you need something in color what will be more visible than composition you create. And now I decided to take the piece from the paper with the human bodies and the skeleton. It's so cool, then I leave it that in whole piece for using for this project on another project, because I don't want to waste that. It's looking amazing, like the whole graphics in the collection from Ciaubella, Sign of the Times. Because the bones and skeletons look so cool, I decided to chosen the topic of my tag, the papers with the human body graphics. Then I cut it again from the paper with small skulls and brains and hearts. It's maybe weird, but looking awesome. And on this paper it's cool because they have the big numbers too, and I always love the numbers and letters on my projects. Then it will be cool looking here. This moment I cutted the paper for the elements with visible graphics, and I want to add that to my project too. In this moment I check every time if I have enough heavy body gel when I stick the paper to the tag, because my collage it's going up, and sometimes between the layers it's a little bit higher and you need to add more heavy body gel than normal. Be sure with that. It's cool for later, and you don't will be nervous when water or inks go under the paper and change the shape of composition of make the ugly stain. In this moment it's important to be sure everything it's completely covered with that. How I said, I decided add a little bit graphics for the background, and when you add the graphics on the edges and it's behind the tag, you can stick it and cut it there something what is too long. It's not problem with that. Of course, I have my skeleton and I check it's matched to my background, but I don't want to hide it, this collage, then I decided leave it that for later. Now it's time to make our tag completely dry. Then I dried that with my heat gun, but be careful because you can make the heavy body gel to bubble too much, and don't dry in one place too long. It makes like the moves around the tag, and until you will be sure everything is completely dry. And remember one thing, when heavy body gel it's hot and warm, it's a little bit sticky. Then if you touch it too fast, you can be sticked to your fingers. Be sure when you touch it, you don't take off your papers from the tag. Because heavy body gel have the glossy finish, I decided add one more layer from the clear gesso, what it's not so much shiny like heavy body gel. Not always I want to have my project with the glossy finish, and this moment it's good choice to make it that more matte than normal after using the heavy body gel. And with the clear gesso it's the same rules like with the heavy body gel. It's good medium to seal it your paper and your layers again. It makes, I am sure, it's every piece of the paper it's hide from the water and inks in the future. And I add one layer, and sometimes I add 2 or 3 layers even, for be sure everything is completely safe. And of course, again, I dry the layers with the clear gesso. Normally, when I don't hurry up with my project, it's always better leave it to dry natural without using the heat on the paper and mediums. It's good because in this moment when it's dry natural, paper don't change the shapes and don't make the bubbles and anything. With the heat gun, when you forgot about one space and you hit too long, like I said before, you can have the bubbles on the surface. And of course, I add the second layer of the clear gesso on my project. and we dry again. I hope you are not boring with that, but it's my way to create backgrounds. I always try to be sure everything is completely covered and dry before I start for the next part of the creation. It's time to next steps. The stamps. I love the stamps from Ciaubella for this collection. It's very scientific and with the part of science and human bodies and different things matching to collections. I chosen one big stamp with the DNA. It will be looking nice. When you use stamps on mixed media project, remember about one important thing. You need to use the ink what it's waterproof, because when you take it water inks like Distress for example, with water your pattern will be totally destroyed. Then chosen something what after drying it's waterproof and don't go with water from the project. My first chosen it's using the clear block for the stamp, because it's too big to make the stamps only with your hands. And I decided where I should the stamps put on the tag. And remember about things. We create the collage. It's in different layers of the paper, and even if you squish too much, you never try from the block. You never reach from the block clear, perfectly stamped. For mixed media project, I liked when the stamps it's not always full and completely. It's still visible what it's that, and makes nice pattern in background, and I don't worry about it. It's not full and not perfectly. For me, it's okay. I don't know how you like it, but I like it very much in this way. Because my ink needs a little bit time to be dry, then I use the heat gun again, and I try to make this process a little bit faster. I want to be sure I will be not make the dirty stain when I touched that. Then I dry that with the heat gun, and I am in this moment sure everything is okay. To be completely sure, I used the paper towel and I touch it in the place where I stamp it and check on the towel it's clean or not. And even if it's a little bit wet, the towel take the excess of the inks from the surface. Next steps, of course, is add the patterns from the stencil. My chosen it's the stencil from the Stamperia collection with the nice newspaper pattern and letter, and of course cream paste from Stamperia. It's good option for the structure paste. It's very light and very nicely to add it on your project. I use the palette knife, of course, and I take it a little bit, and I add completely randomly place, and I don't think about perfect pattern. I want to be sure only it's good and good looking. In this moment I chosen one place when it was spot between the stamps. It's feeling good, this place for my project. And I chosen another place. Remember one thing, until the cream paste is wet, you can always destroy it. Then, how you see, I use my hands to take stencil a little bit up under the place when I put the first part of the pattern. Every time when I create every part of the process, I look on that and I decided maybe I add a small piece of the pattern in different place to fill up the background. Then I decided here on the bottom and on the top, really small piece of the letters into place. Then it's looking more interesting for me. And again, I use my heat gun to make process of drying for the cream paste quicker. My next step will be play with the colors on the tag. Then I will be sure I don't destroy the pattern with the brush on that. During the drying, I always check with my fingers it's everything completely dry. I try to touch it delicate the pattern. If I don't feel it's soft and wet, I finished my drying process. It's time for play with the colors. My chosen is the Distress inks. I chosen the three colors. It's the Wild Honey, Vintage Photo and Walnut Stain. I tried to take something green, and my first choice it was the crushed olive, but it's not much for my project. Then how you see, I removed that. It was too light for me. Then my other option, it was Rustic Wilderness. It's very green ink. Then I used that. I squish them on the glass mat, and it will be more comfortable to me work with that and take it with the water on the project. If you don't have the inks, you can use it the mists, you can use it the powder pigments, you can use it the watercolors. It depends what you have and what you liked to use in your projects. You don't need to use the water inks. Or maybe you like it, then why not? Sometimes when I like the color, I can use the acrylic paints, but you can mix it with the water and make it more liquid than usual acrylic paints are, and you can add it too for your project. It's not problem with that. To add color on my project, I usually prefer brushes, because it's more control for me adding the color on the project, and later I spray with the water or something like that. When I want to make the nice stain on the project, before I add the color, I spray the project. It depends what effect you want to use it. With mediums which react with water, it's not problem, because even when it's dry, you can spray it and make it that again wet and work with that. Then this is Distress inks, for example. When it's dry, you can spray it and work with that again when you don't like the effect. Then why not? The waters and this kind of the mediums, it's cool. I start with the brown color. It's the dark color on the from this palette, and I add a little bit in some places. Now a little bit light color like the wild honey, add the yellow spots, and how you see, I don't work with that too fast, too long. I add it, I spray it, and make it nice splashes, and still work with the brush. That's why very important is to make the structure paste very dry, because in this part, when you add too much water, you can destroy the pattern and make ugly stain on the top. When you decide that it's too much water or too much color in this moment, you can use it the wet tissue and take the excess on your tissue, and even if you take too much, you can add again, and you can work in this way so long you will be sure it's this effect what you want to create on your projects. Every time when I work, it's the same thing. I add a lot of water and I take the excess with color from that and add another layers of the colors, and again, and this give you a nice stain and nice effect at the end. Now it's time for the green. It was a little bit on the basic paper, then I decided add a little bit. In this moment I make the splashes from the brush on the project. I don't want too much greenish thing. And I add on the edges and I splash it in some places. Of course, later I decided add a little bit more with every steps, because the color changed when I mix it with the first brown and yellow, and it's looking cool. That's why not. I still work and decide that it's enough or not. When I am happy with the effect, I clean my mat and dry my tag again. When you dry your tags or project, you remember check the edges, because the paper is cutted and we sealed that, but sometimes water goes under that or in the edges and need a little bit more time to be dry. Then I checked that, and with my fingers I want to be sure all wet places are dry completely. And it's not finished to work with our backgrounds. Now, next step is the stencil. It's again Stamperia stencil with the numbers. I love it so much. And of course, markers. It's waterproof markers. What I like to use it with the stencils. I take it the numbers from the stencil and I draw them on the project in the randomly places. I had the numbers on the papers, if you remember that, and it will be good looking when I add a little bit numbers on the project. Then I take it and I draw it. You can use it in this way every kind of the stencil with every pattern what you like. If you have a lot of the patience, you can use it even the damask pattern or something very small and full of details, but it depends how long you want to create this part. For me, it's always good to use it stencil like the numbers, letters, or the geometric shapes and some lines because it's easier and you can add in every moment of your creative process. If you draw this kind of the pattern, try to be sure your pattern will be different sizes in different places, and it will be more interesting, because if the number will be in one size and you take only one numbers, it will be more maybe not boring, but not quite interesting. When you take it even the same numbers in different sizes, it's looking good on the project. It's more interesting and eye-catching. And the last part of our backgrounds is to draw by hand the frame around it. It's like fake stitches or fake frame. I make it that myself. I draw the one line around it. For some persons it's okay when it's one line. I make it that double line. For me it's more interesting than a single one, and it's not so fast because remember we have the layers of the paper and we have the pattern from the stencil with the structure paste, then your marker, it's not work so good on the surface, then it's going slow. When you use inks on your project, you need to remember one thing. When you chosen, for example, distress ink oxide, and it's not good for your markers to use it on this surface because oxide destroyed the markers completely. When I add the second line around it, this background, I make a little bit fake stitches, this randomly places I make like the zigzags or something like that. It gives a nice finish for the frame, and it really looks like the fake stitch, like the thread from the machine, leave it on the edges. You can play with that and create what you like it. On the tags you can create this kind of the frame on the cards or the art journal pages. It's a cool thing to finish your project. And part with the backgrounds we have ready. You can check the details for that, and I think it's looking awesome and I like it. I hope you like it too. And our next part will be create the main composition on the top. And for me, like I said, I chosen the graphics with the human bodies, with the bones, skeletons, and hearts and brains. If you use the papers from Ciaubella, you can, from the Sign of the Times collection, chosen different patterns. It's the botanical sites, it's the science sites with the Battles microscope. It's only your choice for that. I have prepared some elements fuzzy cutting from the paper. Then main top thing on the composition will be this skull, what I show you. And I like the layers, then I use a lot of the chipboards for that, or the cardboards or foams. It depends what you like, but I always try to glue it everything in this way. I used Stamperia glue extra forte. Sometimes, how you see, likes dried on the top, but I love it, this glue. It's very strong and dry very fast. Then I use it a lot of them. I cut it piece of the chipboards to the size of the skull, and I decided to glue it that to this small frame with the skulls on with profile. But in the moment when I randomly put that during the cuts on second, it looks so cool. Then I decided hide this small skull under this big one, and for me it will be very eye-catching on the composition. My process of create of layers, it's so complicated. I don't know. I try to explain that for you everything, but it's like with the collage. I sit and stick it everything together and decided where I put and how much everything I should to put between that. But I try to use it every time when I needed the chipboards for this. In this moment, I chosen the something with the half hearts on that, and I decided to take the paper with the nice notebooked edges with the dark sides. Sometimes, how you see, I try to create composition not only on the tag, because sometimes my composition going outside from the project. It's not necessarily be only on the surface of the tag. You can go outside if you want it. It's not something what you need to be careful. When I decided during the create process about, oh, it's too big, I need something smaller, then you take the scissors, you can cut it, and especially like here, when the paper in the background has nice interesting shape, you can cut that and put in the layers, and it will be visible with the nice edge, and it will be interesting and eye-catching too. For first step, it's like put everything on the flat on the tag and try to decide that I want to add the chipboard or not. In this moment, with the big pieces, always cut the chipboard and glue it on the distance, because when I made it that and I decided add something small, I have a little place to put something between two big pieces. And glue, it's good option, because until it's wet you can take off and put something more. It's the same thing with the heavy body gel. You can add it, and it's longer not drying thing, then you can take off and put something more, and again and again. This is the creative process to make the layers on your project. Sometimes the leftovers have a very nice pattern, and when you don't need the big one, you can take it something smaller and cut like the stripes, like I one moment before, and try to use it in your composition. You don't need to throw up that to the trash. It's, you know, for us it's always the treasure and something what you can use it. This kind of the layers composition you can use always, not only for the tags or the mixed media project. You can use it that on the cards too. Not always I create this kind of the layers on the cover of notebook, because when I want to have something useful, too big composition, too high composition, it's problematic in during the use. But if it's something like here, only few layers up, it will be perfect for the cover, and don't need to worry about the higher of the composition. The bottom of the composition, the big piece of the paper, will be glued to the tag directly. Then I add, of course, the chipboards too. I take two small pieces. On this kind of the base, like the MDF, you don't need to worry about something is too stiff. Then you can use one big piece of the cardboard or chipboard. But when you work with the cards, for example, try to add not one big piece of the chipboard in the layers, but a few small ones. The card, it's more elastic in this moment, not so stiff like a lot of the cardboard on this. Of course, the paper with the school, it's again on the chipboard and create the layers. I love this heart, and then try it to put in the composition because it's cool and I want to be sure I use it. And I try with the brain. It's something like that. You need to combine and find it this place, this perfect place for the graphics what you want to use it. If you like prepare your composition before that, you can always put your elements on the project, on the tag or cards. And of course, if you like it, you can use your cell phone and take the photo for this. And later it will be easier to create again the same thing. For me, it's not necessarily good now, because I always change something when I take the photo. And now I work with my elements and with my composition more spontaneous than normal. Then I don't use photo. It's for me it's not good anymore. But if it's easier for you in this way, you can always use it this thing for you. How you see, I prepare a lot of the big elements and small, and a lot of the different words and sentences. Always when I fuzzy cuttings, I try to cut from the paper every elements what I can use it, because small one, very small, and the medium size, it's always good to make your composition more interesting. Try to make your composition from different sizes, different elements, and different colors and graphics. It's really cool. Even if you put somewhere very small stripes for that, what it's a little bit visible from the layers. It's more interesting because your eyes see that, and oh, it's something here, oh, it's something here, oh, it's something small here in between the layers too. And every person who watch that, it will be looking on that and discover small details with every time when look on your project. Now I decided to make it the sentences in the frame. Then I chosen word human, and I stick it that on the green frame. But of course I used the piece of the chipboard for that. It will be on distance and make it this 3D effect again. And how you see, I glued that not totally on the middle of the frame. I want to one side of the frame visible and one side is under the sentences. It's more interesting. It's not the symmetric thing. It's in different sides, then looking cool. Another piece of the frames and small elements I try to combine between the layers. And like I said, when you have the stick it everything with the chipboards, you can use it that like here I add only the small piece of the chipboard because the big one will be not matching for that. It's cool when you don't glue it everything in the one moment, and you can try and match every piece together. But when it's sticked together, you can only add glue for the paper and put the elements between the layers. How you see, I try again with the hearts. I really like this graphics and I try to push that in my project, but unfortunately at the end I don't use that. It was too much for me, but the frames and the stripes, it's always a good thing to stick it together with the composition. Every time when I add something under the main graphics, I put them on the project and check it's in good place, because until glue is wet, I can always take it and move a little bit to put in the perfect place. And again, I back to the heart. I was stubborn with that during this creative process, but it's not matching. In this moment, I decided to glue it the big part to the tag. It will be more easier for me to work with the another layers when it will be not moving anymore. Then it's this moment when I need to take the choice, stick it and don't move anymore. Now I only work with the top elements and top composition. And like I said to you before, I not always use the chipboards. This time I chosen the small piece and I stick it between the layers directly on the bottom layer. It gives me another look and it's something more. It's flat, but it still creates the layers of the paper in my composition. It's the moment when I always take the small pieces and I try to stick between the layers. I look on that, I decide that I want it or I don't want. Like I said, it's not easy to me to explain how I create the layers, because it's something what sit in my head totally. But I hope it will be easier to understand that when you see that, and maybe try make it own and try again, and with every composition it will be better for you and create something nice. It's time to glue it my skull to the composition. You need to remember about empty space under the composition. Like here, we have different layers with the chipboards, and between that it's the empty space. And when I want to glue it, this composition, I check it's everything straight, and if I need it, I add the 1 or 2 layers of the chipboards between the different layers, and I check it's everything okay for this. I want to be sure I don't destroy my my composition. Sometimes, like you see, it's you make two wrong choice for the glued chipboards, and you need to move it because it's visible under the layers, and I need now remove the excess of the glue from the papers. Extra forth, I have this nice things when you take it off with the tissue from your papers when it's wet. It's don't leave it the visible marks too much. Then if you hide it between the layers, it's not looking bad, it's not visible. On the, of course, big clean surface it will be visible, but not in the small parts of the composition. Now I can glue it everything together and decided if I want to add something more or not. It's time to put on our tag some of the words and sentences. This moment it's the frame with the human word. Remember that we glue it together. I try to put that in the right place, then I try in different place on the tag, but I really like it that on the bottom of composition. Then I take it piece of the chipboard again, because I want to create another highs of the layers, and I put it in the only one side, because it will be sticked only small part, then I don't need it, the chipboard on the whole long frame, only on the right part. And sentences is a little bit on the side of composition. Another word is the skeleton, and because I chosen the human bodies topic for this tag, then I take it the words combined with that. Then I have on the top it will be skeleton, next to the human I stick it the word of the bones. And of course, of the left side of the skull, we have a word of the skull with the number. Then it's looking cool for me, and I love it. and I still checking what I can add more, because for me it's still something empty. Then I take it this small frame. I don't need the whole thing. I need only the small piece what will be looking from the another layers, and I put it there. I can use it in this way, one part and the second part in the different place. It will be like it start here and finish something else. If you don't need to hide something under the papers, you can be brave and cut it on half or different parts and use it only the parts in your composition. It's always a good idea for that. Because I really like the graphics with the skull from profile, what I hide it under the big skull, I decided to cut it that from in the small version from the big part of the graphics, and put on my tags too. It will be like you know, set of the anatomy thing, and it's looking for me really nice. And this is the moment when I am really happy with my composition and with my layers. Then I decided to clean my mat and makes the last touches for the tag. And it's now the time for the put something in the hole in our tag. I chosen the thread in the natural color and the brown vintage ribbon for that. I mix it everything together and I put everything in the hole in the tag, and that gives me the nice finish for my tag, and it's matching with color and everything. I hope you like this project, and you will be happy to try with mixed media if you don't have time for this for today. Mixed media are very nice and beautiful technique, and you don't need to be afraid with them. It's looking maybe scary, but it's not. Our simple and small pieces of the art can be good thing to try to and learn different technique. That's why I love it, the tag in every kind. Then I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching that.